She hated him the first time they met. He thought she was just another village girl. But sometimes pride hides pain, and prejudice hides the truth. Welcome to a story of misunderstandings, second chances, and the slow, beautiful blooming of love, told not in grand gestures, but in honest words and humble hearts. This is not Jane Austen's tale as you know it. This is From Pride to Forever, a reimagined love story that will teach you more than romance. It will teach you English through emotion, dialogue, and the power of listening. Why this story helps you learn English? Learning English doesn't have to be boring. When you listen to a story like this, you're not just hearing words, you're feeling them. You're learning real phrases used in real emotions. You're improving your grammar and vocabulary naturally without even realizing it. This is the secret of fluent speakers. They listen to English stories over and over again. Call to action. So, if you want to fall in love with English while falling in love with a beautiful story, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell icon, and let the story begin. It was a quiet afternoon when the news arrived at the Dalesworth household. A new gentleman, wealthy, unmarried, and as rumors went, exceptionally agreeable, had taken residence at Windermere Hall, just 10 miles from their cottage. For the 5 Linton sisters, it meant only one thing: a chance for excitement, and perhaps something more. "Did you hear, Clara?" said Emma, the most talkative of the sisters. "Mr. Ashford has moved into Windermere. They say he has £10,000 a year." Clara Linton, second eldest and always more composed, raised an eyebrow. And yet, that says nothing about his character. Their mother, Mrs. Linton, was already envisioning wedding veils and invitations. "You must all look your best when we attend the harvest ball next week. A man like that won't remain unwed for long." That evening, Clara stood at her window, watching the fog settle across the hills. She wasn't like her sisters, who dreamed openly of dances and dowries. She was thoughtful, observant, and perhaps a little too quick to form judgments. Have you ever made a quick judgment about someone and later realized you were completely wrong? The arrival of Mr. Ashford set the village buzzing. Handsome, refined, but reserved, he made an impression wherever he went. His friend, Mr. Harland, was the opposite: open, warm, and immediately fond of Emma. At the harvest ball, Clara observed Mr. Ashford from across the room. He barely danced. He spoke only when spoken to. And when he did speak, it was often with a cool detachment that some found proud. But Clara noticed something else. Behind his formality, there was curiosity, perhaps even vulnerability. Stories like this help improve your English while feeding your imagination. As you follow Clara's journey, ask yourself, what hidden sides do we miss when we judge others too quickly? If you're enjoying the story, comment your favorite character so far and hit subscribe for more English learning through powerful stories. The week after the ball, Clara could not help but think of Mr. Ashford's words, or rather, his silence. He had barely danced with anyone. When he was asked about it, he said quietly, "I do not find many people worth the effort." It was a statement meant for no one's ears, but Clara heard it, and she remembered it. "That man thinks far too highly of himself," Emma declared the next morning. "He didn't even ask you to dance, Clara." Clara shrugged. "Perhaps he simply didn't wish to pretend." Emma frowned. "Well, Mr. Harland danced twice with me, and he said I have a lively wit." "Then maybe you should marry Mr. Harland," said their younger sister June, who had been eavesdropping with delight. Meanwhile, Mr. Ashford continued to intrigue and confuse Clara. When they did speak, he seemed cautious, almost rehearsed. He asked questions about books, about her views on independence, and listened with an intensity that unnerved her. But then he would walk away, cool and distant, as if it meant nothing at all. Have you ever been drawn to someone who always kept their feelings locked away? One afternoon, while walking in the nearby woods, Clara happened upon Mr. Ashford by accident. He looked up from his sketchbook, surprised. "I didn't expect company," he said. "And I didn't expect an artist," she replied, nodding at the pencil in his hand. He hesitated. "I only sketch when I need to understand something better." "Do you sketch people too?" "Only when they matter." The words lingered, unspoken meanings between them like mist. What do you think Mr. Ashford meant by "only when they matter"? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Listening to English stories like this helps you improve your vocabulary, understand emotional tones, and enjoy the beauty of language, one sentence at a time. If this story is sparking your imagination, don't forget to like and subscribe to Epic English Stories. Days passed, and the weather changed. The sky turned grey, the air damp. But inside Clara's heart, a strange restlessness had begun to grow. One morning, a letter arrived. It was from Mr. Harland. Mr. Harland, addressed to Emma, of course, but in it, he mentioned something unexpected. "Ashford speaks often of your sister Clara. He says she is difficult to understand, but impossible to ignore." Clara read the line twice. Then a third time. She told herself not to care. But the truth clung to her like the chill in the air. That evening the storm came. Rain pelted the windows. Thunder echoed across the hills. And in the midst of the downpour, someone knocked at their cottage door. It was Mr. Ashford, soaked, breathless, but calm as ever. I didn't intend to call," he said, "but the carriage lost its wheel on the slope. I was nearby." Mrs. Linton, delighted by fate, insisted he come in and dry off. The sisters whispered, thrilled. Clara simply stood, trying to read his eyes. Later, as the fire crackled and the rest of the family played cards, he sat beside her. "May I ask something?" he said quietly. "You may try," Clara replied, her voice cool. "Why do you look at me like that? As if I've insulted you by breathing." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Perhaps because every time we meet, you speak to me as if you regret it." His mouth twitched. Perhaps a smile, perhaps not. "I am not always skilled in pleasant conversation." "You speak well when it suits you," she said. He leaned forward just slightly. "It always suits me, with you." She said nothing, but her silence spoke louder than words. Have you ever tried to hide your feelings, only to find them rising like a storm? Listening to stories like this builds not just your English, but your emotional understanding, the ability to read between the lines. If you're enjoying this tale of heart and hidden truth, please comment "Storm of Emotions" and subscribe for the next part. After the stormy night, something shifted. Clara found herself thinking of Mr. Ashford more often. Not just his words, but the way he watched the world with quiet depth. Still, she reminded herself, a clever man with sharp eyes could still carry a proud heart. The village was soon abuzz with news. Mr. Ashford was returning to the city for a while. He left no farewells, no letters, just vanished like mist at sunrise. Emma was furious. "He didn't even write to you, Clara." "I didn't expect him to," Clara replied. But inside, she was less sure. Weeks passed. Autumn colors flared across the hills, and life settled again into quiet rhythm, until the Lintons were invited to visit relatives in Brighton. It was there that Clara learned something that shattered her opinion of Mr. Ashford. She overheard a conversation between two gentlemen, careless with their words. Yes, Ashford kept Harlan from marrying that Linton girl, said it would be foolish, that the family was too wild, too poor. Clara stood frozen behind the wall. That Linton girl, Emma, that wild family, hers. He judged us, all of us. She returned to her room in silence. The air felt heavier. The memory of his quiet sketching, his storm-soaked eyes, faded like echoes of something she once imagined was real. But what hurt most was that she had begun to care. Have you ever discovered something about someone that changed everything you thought you knew? This kind of story helps you learn new expressions and emotional nuance in English. It's not just about vocabulary, it's about understanding human nature. Type unexpected truth in the comments if this twist surprised you, and make sure to subscribe for the next emotional turn. Clara returned to Dalesworth with a quiet ache in her heart. She told no one what she'd heard in Brighton, not even Emma. But the disappointment sat heavy in her chest. She had trusted her instincts, and they had betrayed her. Then, on an ordinary afternoon, a letter came. It bore no name on the front, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside, the words were carefully written, every sentence shaped with care. Miss Linton, I am aware that I have been misunderstood, and perhaps justly so. If I have wounded you or your family by speaking too plainly to Mr. Harland, I can only ask your forgiveness. My actions, though clumsy, came from concern, not arrogance. What I said was not meant for your ears, and yet it reached you. And perhaps that is right, for truth demands exposure. If you cannot forgive me, I will not ask again. But if you are willing, I would very much like to explain myself in person. L. Ashford. Clara read the letter again and again. She did not know whether to cry, smile, or tear it apart. But something in her heart whispered, he wrote this not with pride, but with humility. A few days later, he returned. No grand entrances, no carefully chosen phrases. Just a man who stood before her and said, I was wrong. About many things, but not about you. Clara met his eyes, and for the first time, she saw no distance between them. Only truth. Has anyone ever surprised you with an apology that touched your heart? Stories like this aren't just about love. They teach us to listen, to speak honestly, and to grow. And while you enjoy the drama, you're learning real English through real emotion. If this part moved you, comment Letters of the Heart, and don't forget to subscribe to Epic English Stories. After Mr. Ashford's return, things were never quite the same. He visited the Linton home more often, not with grand gestures, but with quiet presence. He helped June with her book reports. He spoke kindly to Mrs. Linton. He even lost a chess game to their younger brother without showing the slightest frustration. Emma, ever the observer, whispered to Clara one evening, if that man isn't in love with you, I'll eat my bonnet. Clara smiled faintly. And what if he is? Then don't waste time pushing him away with your pride. Clara fell silent. She had spent so long shielding her heart, judging his every word, protecting herself from disappointment. But now, she was beginning to understand something important. He had flaws, yes, but he was also trying. She found herself thinking back to their first meetings, the distance, the formality, the missteps. And now she saw a man who was growing, who had put down his pride, and in doing so, helped her lay down her own. One quiet evening, they walked through the golden fields beyond Dalesworth. Leaves rustled around them like soft applause. Clara, he said, stopping beneath the oaks, I won't pretend to be the perfect man, but I would be honored to try. With you. She looked at him, really looked at him, and this time, she didn't hesitate. I don't need perfect, she said. Just honest, just human. And in that moment, with no audience, no grand speech, no expectations, something beautiful and unspoken bloomed between them. Have you ever realized someone was changing, not for show, but because they truly cared? Learning English through stories like this helps you absorb grammar and vocabulary naturally, through emotion, not just memorization. Comment: growth over perfection. If you believe in second chances, and hit subscribe to follow Clara and Ashford's journey to the end. Just when things between Clara and Mr. Ashford had begun to soften, the past returned, unexpected and sharp. One evening, while the Lintons hosted a small gathering, a new guest arrived. Miss Helena Carraway, a tall, graceful woman from Ashford's past. She swept into the room like a forgotten chapter, her voice silky, her presence electric. Everyone noticed how Mr. Ashford stood a little straighter, a little colder. "Leonard," she said with a knowing smile, "I never imagined you'd still be here among the hills and country charm." Clara watched them closely. The way Helena leaned in, the way Mr. Ashford avoided her gaze. Later that evening, when Helena cornered Clara by the tea table, she asked sweetly, "Did he ever tell you we were once nearly engaged?" Clara blinked, caught off guard. "No, he didn't mention it." "Oh dear. Well, I suppose some truths are heavier than others. But don't worry, Leonard always had a talent for bearing what he didn't want to feel." With that, she drifted away like perfume, leaving behind a haze of doubt. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. Why hadn't he told her? Was it because it still mattered? Was Helena right? Was he only pretending? The next day, Clara met him by the lake, where the mist hung low and the silence was loud. "You knew she was coming," Clara said quietly. "Why didn't you tell me?" Mr. Ashford's expression tightened. "Because I knew what she'd try to do. I didn't want her to steal your peace." "Is there something between you still?" "No, there never truly was." He stepped closer, his voice low. "She wanted the version of me I was pretending to be. You. You see the man I want to become." Have you ever doubted someone because of what you didn't know, only to find the truth deeper than you imagined? Emotional storytelling like this helps you practice English through meaningful dialogue, real conflict, and deep connection. Comment: truth beneath silence. If this twist surprised you, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a part. The days grew shorter in Dale's birth. The air was crisp with the scent of autumn, and golden leaves floated like forgotten letters across the hills. Clara and Mr. Ashford found themselves growing closer again. Not because everything had become easy, but because they were choosing each other through the tension, through the truth. Miss Helena Carraway had returned to the city, her games unsuccessful. Yet the shadow she cast reminded Clara of an important truth. Love built on honesty is stronger than any secret. One evening, as the sun began to dip behind the trees, Clara walked alone through the fields. She didn't know he'd followed. "Clara," said a voice behind her. She turned to find Mr. Ashford holding something small in his hands. A silver ring, simple and elegant, like the way he always noticed the details no one else did. "I once believed love was a thing of logic," he said, "of strategy and timing. But you've shown me it's something entirely different. It's humility. It's listening. It's choosing someone every single day, even when you're scared." He knelt, not with grandeur, but with deep intention. "I don't want to be the man people expect. I want to be the man you see. Will you marry me, Clara Linton?" For a moment, the world paused. The wind stopped. The clouds stood still. And all that remained was her answer. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. Have you ever imagined your perfect proposal? Not because it's fancy, but because it's real. These stories help you understand not just English language, but emotional depth, commitment, and growth. You're learning communication, not just words. Comment yes to love if this moment moved you, and make sure you're subscribed to Epic English Stories to follow the final part. Spring returned to Dalesworth as if the village itself was celebrating the coming wedding. Wildflowers filled the meadows, and soft sunlight poured over the cottages like a blessing. Clara stood before her mirror on the morning of the ceremony, dressed not in luxury, but in a gown stitched by her own hands, with love in every thread. June brushed her hair. Emma fixed her necklace. "You look like the heroine of every book we ever read," Emma whispered. Outside, Mr. Ashford waited by the old oak tree where they'd first truly spoken. No church, no gold trim, just the land they both loved and the people who knew them best. As Clara walked down the path, the wind caught her veil and lifted it like a secret being set free. When she reached him, he whispered, "You've changed everything." And she smiled, because she knew he had changed too. They said their vows beneath the branches that had watched them grow, not just closer to each other, but into better versions of themselves. And when they kissed, it was not the end of a story, it was the beginning of a life. Not perfect, not without flaw, but filled with the kind of love that only comes from honesty, patience, and yes, a little pride and a lot of understanding. Do you believe that real love is something we grow into, not just fall into? English is more than grammar. It's about telling human stories, feeling each word, and learning how language brings people together. If this story touched your heart, comment. From Pride to Forever. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Epic English Stories, where learning meets inspiration.